Hello everyone and welcome to our next bit of Design Club, and with that I have only one question to ask you. Why does this artwork exist? The things I do for you guys for these like I'm there trying to find some cool artwork to help illustrate some of the points that I'm gonna make, and then I just have to look at Junkrat's boobs. That's my day so far. So, one question I gotta ask. Are you feeling lucky? Because we are going to talk about the concept for Gamble Man, which sounds really lame, honestly, but it has the potential to be very fun. And again, this is very much going to be focused on expanding the roster of TALON heroes, especially now we're getting more and more info of their operations, their base, even their individual members' lifestyle with Chateau Goliath with a Mecha Home. And I've been looking at Maximilian since he was revealed in the comic, and he does really have the potential to be a very neatly designed, suave hero, and obviously having someone who is effectively Nega Zenyatta would be really cool, and we found him in a casino, and that obviously draws the parallels to the whole chance-based character. But the thing is, it's a little bit tricky to design a character around RNG, because really, what does RNG cause? It always leaves one person unhappy. If I have a move that's got a 50-50 chance to kill you, and it kills you, you're like, well, that is bullshit. But if it doesn't kill you, I'm like, well, that is bullshit. And either way, someone is left unsatisfied and screwed over, much like the praying mantis. God, it's gotta suck knowing that there's a good chance you're just going to die afterwards.
The female was much too quick for him and starts eating her mate alive.
And that always makes it awkward. So the best way to make a character that feels like he has fun variants but doesn't annoy everyone is to have a system whereby the results, while random, are generally as bad or as good as each other. So what do I mean? Well, let's say you have an effect where you buff yourself with either attack speed or extra damage, and this is at random. You get the attack speed, maybe you start working your way through a squishy enemy. You get the extra damage, maybe you look for a tank and start really making holes in their health. In both situations, it was an okay result, just different, and it changes how you play based on that. Let's say you're the enemy, you see them light up green, which means extra damage, and you're playing a tank. You know to avoid them. You see them light up blue, which is the attack speed. You know to protect your mercy. And that is a random thing that can happen, but from everyone's perspective, it's interesting and not just, well, that's bullshit. Obviously, there are situations where you will have the damage buff come up, and you only got one more shot in, and it was enough to kill them because of that, and then both people are like, whoa! And the other guy's like, fuck! But even in those situations, as long as they're rare enough, they're actually good, because people remember extreme positive and negative outcomes, and if they're not all the time, then they are honestly a good memory, even for the negative party, once the amount of time is passed that you, well, need as a person. But then again, it's Overwatch, so no matter what we do, somebody's gonna get angry about everything. I mean, every competitive season has been the worst competitive season, and every competitive season has meant that Overwatch competitive is dying, and why are people bitching? Just play the game for fun, fuck! Alright, so we are going to focus on this theme of Gamble Man there. And I do apologize that it's taking so long to start explaining, but I think, you know, laying out my train of thought as to how I arrived at all of these conclusions is somewhat interesting. So, Maximilian himself then, he seems like someone who would never go looking for a fight. He'd defend himself in a tight spot, but he definitely seems to be more the prepared type of individual. I mean, yes, he takes chances. He took a chance on Talon, but he seems to be a certain bit of brains behind it. I could totally see him also being the guy that sets up security measures around the Talon base and is responsible for keeping it secure. And I think when backed into a corner, he would definitely go down swinging. Or at least with one last-ditch attempt at a chance as he reaches for a button and quickly presses something that he hopes is going to activate a turret. Or just, some such like that. And I kind of want to combo that theme with, the RNG. So without further ado, God, it's been 5 minutes. I am so bad at this. His auto attack is going to be throwing cards. It's gotta be, right? And they've gotta be little metal slices, razor edges, like a metal thin deck of cards. I think that would look sublime and match the Omnic aesthetic. Have them black and red, a glowing red line around the edge, and then imprinted into them is artwork of normal cards for the main ones, but Jack, Queen, and King. The Jack is Reaper looking like a Jack, the Queen is Widow looking like a queen, and then the king is Doomfist looking like a king. Like carded versions of them, all lovely arted out onto the cat. That was a great sentence. And he's throwing them at the enemies. And in terms of throwing them, I could totally see it happening like Zenyatta does with his orbs. Less all over the place and less martial artist, but I would love to see him doing it with the almost telekinesis Zenyatta can do. Maybe he can't do that because Zenny can only do it because of this enlightenment and one with the iris that he's reached, but the idea of him just motioning his hand forward in like a slicing arc, and then the top card on the deck that he's just got resting on his left palm goes zipping forward, how neat would that look? He's obviously got to have 52 shots before he needs to reload the amount of cards in a deck, and then to add a little bit of chance and planning, even though this is very much controlled RNG, in fact maybe not even RNG, the last 4 cards that you fire are aces, and these would deal double damage, something along those lines. They would have a bonus to them, and you can plan for this, obviously, deliberately get rid of some cards, get low, so when the enemy push, you can instantly launch into them with aces, and the enemy can kind of be aware of this, because let's say there's an effect on the deck when the aces are ready, or you can kind of just get a feel for how many cards the Gamble Man has fired at you, and that way you have this lovely little theme tied together and interaction going on. In terms of attack speed and range, I would see it like McCree with travel time, maybe 2 shots a second, around 100 DPS, doubled to 200 with the aces. Nothing crazy, but he can fire a lot, and maybe we even let the cards pierce one person and hit something else behind. 1 pierce per card, just to give him a nice little extra effect. Not crazy damage, but he is quite threatening to constantly be clustered in line of sight of. And for reloading, I would love the idea of him pulling his jacket forward, reaching into his breast pocket and pulling out a fresh deck, placing it on his palm, and off he goes again. Just really tie the whole thing together. So next up, we're going to introduce a passive here, because we need to have something that is purely RNG, just something that can make those ridiculous moments happen. Something like Twist of Fate. When you get reduced to what would be 0 health, we just have a chance, or make it every X amount of minutes if you don't want it to be too bullshit, but we have it so he just simply doesn't die for a few seconds, you know? He is somehow miraculously evading every bullet, dodging every stun, weaving around, like he's not even aware he's doing it. He's just someone who's drunk a luck potion and is accidentally avoiding every bit of harm on the battlefield. That's how it would be in lore, but in gameplay it would be he's just unkillable for a few seconds. I think that would be a really neat way to have him go out. And we either have this as a chance, but what I would kind of like is I would say this activates if he would otherwise get one shot from his current health. So if he's on full health, let's say we give him 200, 250, and he gets widow sniped, he gets put to 1 health and is made unkillable for a few seconds. He can get healed back up, or he can get finished off. But if he gets trickled down, then he just dies. Almost like fate is giving him a second chance, when otherwise he would have just been instantly swept away. Just as a nice little safety net. I think that could be a lot of fun. Alright, so his E then. Time to move over to the dice, because we got to include them, and this is where his disruption-y defense is going to come in. Remember how I said he'd totally plan and have a defense system in place? Well, he's got a supply of dice. He can lay one down every X amount of time. You chuck them forward, a bit further than Flashbang, but less ridiculous than Anna's canister, and they land on the ground. Now, these things aren't terribly visible. They're a bit bigger than normal dice, because they have to be, but they're not exactly standout. They're subtle. They're little black dice where the dots are glowing red. So, you know, if you're being careful, you would notice them. And they're just lying on the ground wherever he threw them. And then when he presses the button again, they leap into the air like a sprint mine and a little electric-y looking explosion happens. It does minor damage, like 25, 50 maybe, nothing crazy, but it applies 1 of 3 negative effects. A mini stun like Flashbang, or your screen just goes dark and you can't see anything for a few seconds, or you are really slowed like you've been Mayfreezed for a while. So this way, all 3 of them are equally bad. Yes, one of them might be better or worse in the situation. Reaper's ulting, you hope you get the stun, but even slowing him down so you can walk away is still okay. And then the Reaper gets to feel better because he didn't get completely screwed over. And this is the kind of everything's bad, but kind of equally bad, so it's not that bad, you know, type RNG going on. And what I think would be extra cool is obviously you can throw it, instantly press it, and use it like a random CC grenade, which is excellent, but I would go extra far and let's give him a cap of 10 dice. Every cooldown he can place another one, and then all 10 are on the ground. When he presses the detonation, all 10 go off. So if you give him enough time, he can make a lovely little nest of dice explosions, and then you're going to take a shit ton of damage, be both stunned, blinded, and slowed, and just feel awful and have hell to pay as you're wandering around. So you got to keep an eye out for these glowing red dice on the floor, and be aware that if you've not seen Maximilian in a while, you might be walking into a dice nest. So you can use it on the fly in combat to gain an advantage, or actually think about it and prepare yourself a little trap. But you can't choose which ones to detonate, so you do have to think about it a little bit more seriously. I think that's a lot of fun. Oh, and also, how cool would it be if you looked at the dice, the number that was on it correlates to the effect that's going to happen, like 1, 2 stun, 3, 4 slow, 5, 6 blind. How much of an awesome little detail interaction would that be? You're safe to walk on this one because a slow isn't going to interrupt your play, and you know that because of the number. I also think having a more sort of permanent thing-ish placing defense is a good thing for the game. Then I would give him a very long cooldown, Sombra-esque ability, because I like to do Tither lore together of various same faction. I could totally see someone being like, Sombra, yo, your teleporter technology. Kind of cool if the rest of us could teleport, please. And I would totally see Maximilian as someone who would, let's say, borrow it. I mean, maybe Sombra is too smart for that, but she has been known to be cocky and make mistakes. But I would love a coin engineered with a mini, less powerful version of Sombra's teleport technology. And how this is going to work is he flicks the coin out, and it goes an okay distance. When it lands, it has a 50-50, heads or tails, chance to bounce like a Junkrat. Left click, keep going at some good speed. Each time it hits a surface, this is repeated. As soon as it fails the 50-50 to keep bouncing, you are instead forcibly teleported to it. So you could get incredibly lucky or unlucky here, and this would of course be called cut and run. Like, that's the best name for this. You flip out this coin, and you hope you end up somewhere safe, or you could use it to obviously be a little bit more aggressive. You're running away, you see this coin bouncing past you, you know that he's going to appear there, together. I think that would be so much fun, and obviously the animation for it would be great. He'd like roll his fingers and the coin would appear between them like the magician's trick, and then flick it forward with his thumb, have the nice clink sound as it bounces around as he escapes. Like, wouldn't that be awesome? And then we get to his ultimate, and I know none of this is super mind-blowing, but it is definitely unique within the realm of Overwatch, and also feels like he is belonging to Talon tech-wise. I don't know, I like it. Not every character needs to be revolutionary, mind-bogglingly complicated, like the Wraith support that we talked about was. So his ultimate then. I absolutely love the idea of a cheating-based ultimate, right? Something that lets him really control the odds. Like loaded dice or something along those lines. And while his ultimate is active, right, he has a lower cooldown on his dice and his coin, and every single card he fires is an ace. He can fire the dice, and all three effects will always happen, and the coin will never bounce, so you can more precisely teleport. So it basically removes the randomness, in really an irony here, and lets him just become this super powerful gamble god for a little bit, where everything is juiced up. And remember that something unstable inside I talked about earlier? Well, this would very much be it. And everything starts glowing on him. Maybe his circuits spark. Maybe he looks like he's even falling apart a little bit, like this is his last ditch effort, and everything about him is crackling with red electricity. Like, he looks very unstable. He's firing dice after dice, CCing everyone, ace after ace. And here's the kicker. The only way for him to stop being in this mode is for him to die. Because I would see this as an irreversible, willing override of his systems in order for him to escape whatever deadly situation he is in. So while this is active, I would have him slowly lose health to compensate for its power, and also, of course, the enemy would be focusing him down, killing him, and obviously ending it. But that would be awesome. With a good support setup, you could keep him alive and in this gamble god mode for ages. And how effective would that be? I also wanted to play around with the idea of making his right-click guarantee something on his next ability. Like, you press right-click, your next dice is 2 out of 3, your next coin only can bounce once, your next card is an ace, just to have a on-demand every 10 seconds or so toggle good luck. But at the same time, I don't know if that would just be too much on top of this. You'd have to let me know what you think. Now, I know a lot of you may be thinking, there's not enough randomness in this. Why aren't the aces random? Or, you know, why isn't there just more pure chance? And again, as I said, it's supposed to be a competitive shooter. You can't have a character with ridiculous variance, but I like to feel at least this feels like there is chances happening where in reality not too much is left to chance, if that makes sense. So yeah, Maximilian Gambleman. We need a better name than that. I would love your guys' ideas, feedback on mine. We're going to talk about a Talon tank next time, which I have a really cool idea for. But until that point, I love this as a defense. Maybe he shouldn't have the teleport. I'm very much keen on giving all my characters a movement ability just because of how important movement is in Overwatch. But you don't need to have a movement ability to be effective. But the coin and comboing with Sombra, I don't know, I kind of liked that. I could see Sombra having a soft spot for the suaveness of Maximilian. Either way, I want your feedback. I need it. I love it. And I will see you next time. Like you enjoyed this, subscribe for more. A goodbye.